The flickering light of the oil lamp cast long shadows across the cramped space where the crew had gathered, their faces etched with fatigue and anticipation. Old Merrick, the venerable historian of Steelbone, settled into his worn seat, the creak of wood a quiet herald of the tales to come. His gnarled hands clasped a battered leather-bound book, the pages yellowed and brittle, a relic of a time before the city had even begun its drift on the toxic sea. "Listen well," Merrick began, his voice a low rumble that carried the weight of years and storms weathered. This sea, this endless, churning wasteland was not always so merciless. There were days when the waters sparkled beneath twin suns, when cities rose tall and proud on solid ground, their engines humming with promise. But greed, pride, and folly brought ruin. Mechanical beasts, once tools of progress, turned hunters in the night, tearing through flesh and steel alike. The crew hung on his every word, the flickering light illuminating the lines of worry and hope alike. Cale sat forward, his sharp eyes reflecting the flickering flames, his mind racing through memories of loss and the burden of command. Mira's fiery gaze softened, her usual defiance yielding to the gravity of history. Joran, clutching a worn schematic, traced the faded lines as Merrick weaved his narrative, the ancient tech interlaced with myth and warning. The Warden, Merrick continued, was once a guardian, charged with maintaining the balance between man and machine, sea and sky. But loss twisted his heart, and he became a tyrant, commanding legions of mechanical beasts to enforce his will. His shadow stretches far, and his knowledge of the artifact is both a threat and a key. A hush fell, broken only by the distant murmur of the toxic sea lapping against Steelbone's patchwork hull. Lina's gentle hands moved with practiced care as she tended to Mira's scraped arm, the soft hiss of herbal salves mixing with the low hum of Merrick's voice. The room, though small and worn, felt like a sanctuary, a fragile haven where stories and scars were shared in equal measure. Joran's fingers trembled slightly as he connected Merrick's tales to the cryptic diagrams he had uncovered. "This artifact," he whispered, "it's not just a tool or a relic. It's a piece of the sea's lost balance, a hope that we can restore what was broken. But to wield it, we must understand the past and face the dangers that still guard it." Kyle nodded slowly, the weight of leadership pressing heavier with each revelation. "We carry their legacy now," he said quietly, "and the fate of Steelbone depends on us seeing it through." Outside, the toxic sea roared, an eternal reminder of the peril that surrounded them. Yet, within the fragile walls of their floating refuge, the crew found strength in shared history, in the stories that bound them to a past they could neither forget nor escape. As Merrick's voice trailed into silence, the room held a collective breath, poised on the edge of a new dawn, a dawn forged in courage, unity, and the fierce, bittersweet determination to survive. Even as shadows lengthened and the sea whispered its ancient secrets, the crew of Steelbone felt the stirring of hope. Old Merrick's tales had not only illuminated the past, but had ignited a fire within them, a fire to reclaim their future from the wreckage of history, to face the Warden's wrath, and to protect the fragile heart of their drifting city. The night deepened, but so did their resolve. For in the stories of old, they found the strength to navigate the storm ahead, and in the bonds forged by shared trials, they discovered a family not born of blood, but of survival and unyielding hope. And as the lamp's glow dimmed against the encroaching darkness, one question lingered in the air, unspoken but ever present. What sacrifices must they make to keep the light alive? The answers lay beyond the horizon, where the sea waited vast, merciless, and full of whispers. The voyage was far from over. The scrap market was a tangled maze of shadows and flickering neon, a cacophony of clanks and whispered deals under the ever-present haze of toxic mist. As the scavenger vessel eased into the dock, the familiar scent of rust and burning oil filled the air, mingling with the faint, acrid tang of the sea's poison. Cale stood at the prow, eyes scanning the labyrinth of scrap towers and makeshift stalls where merchants hawked their wares to desperate buyers. Tonight, they sought not just parts but secrets, the kind that could tip the precarious scales of their survival. Silver was waiting, a silhouette framed by the glow of a sputtering sign advertising rare finds and salvage. Her figure was lean yet purposeful, cloaked in layered dark fabrics that concealed more than just her identity. Pockets bulged with curious trinkets, scavenged relics, and bits of machinery that caught the dim light. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, scanned the crew as they disembarked, a faint, knowing smile tugging at the corners of her lips. "Cal," she greeted, voice smooth yet edged with the coldness of a blade. "I hear you rechasing ghosts beyond the forbidden waters." Cal's jaw tightened. "And you have what we need." Silver gestured to a nearby metal table cluttered with an assortment of parts, shimmering coils, fractured circuit boards, and strange mechanical components that hummed faintly with latent power. "I have what you need, yes, but nothing comes free in these waters." Mira stepped forward, fiery eyes narrowing. "What's your price, Silver? We don't have time for games." The merchant's smile deepened, enigmatic and unsettling. "Information is currency, and trust even more so. I can give you the parts to keep your ship running, and the knowledge to navigate the dead zones. But in return, I need a favor, something you can't refuse once you hear it." Cal exchanged a glance with his second in command. The crew's unspoken question hung heavy in the air. Could they risk the unknown for survival? Joran knelt beside the table, his fingers tracing the delicate engravings on a small artifact Silver had produced from her satchel. The object's intricate gears whispered of ancient technology, the kind that might unlock secrets no one else dared to touch. This could be tied to the artifact we seek," Joran murmured, eyes wide behind cracked lenses. "If Silver's intel is accurate, it might reveal the artifact's true purpose." Lina, ever the calming presence, stepped forward to tend to a shallow cut on Cal's hand, reminding everyone of the tangible costs of their quest. "We need to be careful," she said softly. "Trust is fragile here." Negotiations stretched into the night, the flickering neon casting long, uncertain shadows on weathered faces. Silver's terms were steep, and while her parts could mean the difference between life and death, the crew could not ignore the shadow of doubt she cast. Was she a friend or a foe, an ally or a trap? As the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, Silver gathered her wares and slipped away into the maze of scrap and steel, leaving behind a crew burdened with difficult choices. Their journey was far from over, and the cost of survival was proving higher than any of them had imagined. Cale stood on the deck, watching the horizon with a fierce, bittersweet determination. The bargain with Silver was made, but the path ahead was shrouded in uncertainty. Trust would be their greatest weapon and their deadliest liability. "We move at first light," Cal declared, voice steady despite the storm of doubts within. "Prepare yourselves. The sea isn't done testing us yet." And with that, the scavengers of Steelbone braced themselves for the next chapter of their voyage, where every choice could mean salvation or ruin. And the true nature of their enemy might still be hidden in the shifting shadows. The sea whispered its endless toxic secrets, and the city of scrap awaited their return, fragile but unbroken. The ship rocked gently on the endless toxic sea as Cale and Joran sat huddled in the cramped cabin, their eyes fixed on the rusted holoslate flickering dimly before them. The air was thick with the metallic tang of engine oil and stale air, punctuated only by the faint hum of the failing city behind them. "This recording," Joran whispered, his voice trembling slightly as he adjusted the cracked glass of his spectacles. "It's from before the Warden became what he is now." Cale leaned closer, the lines etched deep on his weathered face softening for a moment. The flickering images showed a man younger and less menacing, clad not in the patchwork armor of tyranny, but in a simpler uniform, standing on the shores of the toxic sea with a look of solemn duty. "He was a guardian once," Joran continued, voice thick with awe and sadness, "charged with protecting the balance of this sea, keeping the mechanical beasts and scavenger factions from tearing it apart." Kale's fingers tightened around the edge of the table, the weight of his own burdens pressing down on him. So what happened? The holoslate crackled, revealing flashes of a devastating storm, wrecked settlements, and the growing chaos that followed. The man they now called the Warden had lost everything: his family, his faith in humanity, and eventually his purpose. His descent into paranoia and control was laid bare, a tragic fall from protector to tyrant. He wasn't always the enemy, Jorin reflected quietly. He became what he hated to stop: a greater destruction. Cal closed his eyes briefly, memories of loss and guilt flooding him. It doesn't excuse what he's done, but it makes this fight harder. Up on deck, Mira's fiery hair whipped in the acrid wind as she stood sentinel. Her sharp gaze fixed on the horizon where dark clouds churned with the promise of another toxic storm. The tale of the Warden's past stirred a storm inside her, as well, a mix of anger at the man's tyranny and a reluctant pity for the broken soul beneath the armor. He's still a threat, she muttered to herself, tightening her grip on her weapon. But maybe there's more to this than just black and white. Back below, Lina moved quietly, her hands steady and warm as she applied a healing salve to the worn skin on Kale's forearm. The soft glow of the lantern cast gentle shadows across her sun-kissed face, her presence a balm to the captain's restless spirit. "You carry too much alone," she said softly, her voice a whisper amid the mechanical creaks of the ship. "Even the strongest need a hand sometimes." Kale looked up, meeting her steady eyes, the vulnerability he rarely showed flickering briefly before he masked it with resolve. "I'm learning," he admitted. Outside the ship, the Warden stood silhouetted against the blood-red glow of his fortress, the patchwork armor of metal plates clinking softly with each measured step. His glowing red lenses scanned the toxic horizon, a sentinel of destruction born from loss and obsession. His shadow stretched long across the jagged scrap that formed the heart of his dominion, a constant reminder of the cost of fear and control. As the crew absorbed the weight of his story, a silent understanding passed among them. Their enemy was not a simple villain, but a man fractured by tragedy, a mirror of the very fears that haunted their own hearts. The journey ahead was no longer just a battle for survival, it was a test of their courage to face not only the mechanical beasts and treacherous seas, but the complex shadows within themselves and their adversaries. Kale stood on the deck, the wind tugging at his worn coat as he gazed toward the distant fortress. "We'll have to be smarter than ever. More than just fighters, we need to be understanding, even if it costs us." Mira stepped beside him, her fierce green eyes burning with renewed determination. "Then let's make sure we're ready for whatever comes." The toxic sea churned beneath them, endless and unforgiving, but within the crew stirred a fierce, bittersweet determination to press on. The Warden's shadow loomed large, but so did the hope that even in darkness, survival and perhaps redemption was possible. Their voyage was far from over. In fact, it was about to enter its most perilous and revealing chapter yet. The stale, metallic air inside the cramped cabin of the scavenger vessel hung heavily, thick with tension that pressed down on each member of the crew like the weight of the toxic sea outside. Kale stood rigid, his lean frame tense, eyes sharp beneath furrowed brows as he faced the figure seated opposite him. Shadows playing over the worn lines etched into his weathered face. The dim light from a flickering bulb cast a sickly yellow hue over the cramped space, illuminating the scattered tools and scraps of machinery that littered the room, symbols of their desperate fight for survival. "You lied to us," Kale said quietly, voice low but cutting through the silence like a blade. "You've endangered all of us, all of Steelbone." The accused crew member, a familiar face once trusted without question, avoided Kale's piercing gaze. Sweat beaded on their brow despite the coolness of the metal walls, hands clenched into fists that trembled with a mixture of fear and defiance. "I did what I had to," the voice cracked, barely above a whisper. "You don't understand what it means out there. The Warden's reach is longer than you think." Mira's fiery red hair was a stark contrast to the cold metal as she burst into the cabin, her green eyes blazing with fury.
Enough!
She snapped, voice sharp as a blade. We can't afford traitors in our midst. If you wanted to protect us, why keep this secret? Her words hung in the air, charged with accusation and heartbreak. The room seemed to shrink, breaths catching as the crew wrestled with the crushing weight of betrayal. Joran remained in the shadows, his slender frame hunched over, cracked glasses reflecting the dim light as he struggled to reconcile the fractures in their fragile family. His quiet voice broke the silence, hesitant yet resolute. Trust is the only thing that keeps us alive out there. If we lose it, what are we? Lina moved swiftly among them, her soft features and sun-kissed skin a balm against the harshness of the moment. She laid a gentle hand on the betrayer's shoulder, then on Cale's arm, her voice steady and warm. Pain cuts deep, but it can also heal. We must decide whether to let this wound fester or bind us closer together. Grav's scarred face was set in a grim expression, his broad shoulders rigid with the weight of the revelation. We've faced worse dangers than this, but none cut so close. If we fracture now, the Warden wins without lifting a finger. The toxic sea roared beyond the vessel's hull, a constant reminder of the peril that awaited them. Yet it was the storm within their own ranks that threatened to sink them first. Cale's mind raced, memories of past losses flashing unbidden, the family he had failed, the promise he'd made to protect this new one. His trust issues, his stubbornness to bear the burden alone, now threatened to shatter everything he had fought to build. We'll not let this break us, Cal declared, voice stronger now, tempered with the bitter knowledge of what was at stake. But we must be honest, and we must be united. If anyone else harbors secrets, now is the time to speak. The crew exchanged glances, the fragile threads of their found family strained but not yet severed. Tess, the young scout, stepped forward, her agile frame silhouetted against the faint light filtering through the porthole. We survive because we trust each other, she said quietly, determination hardening her youthful features. We can't let fear drive us apart. Mira exhaled sharply, the fire in her eyes dimming to a flicker of reluctant acceptance. I'll watch the shadows. No one slips through on my watch. Joran nodded, pushing himself from the shadows, and I'll keep searching for answers. About the artifact, about the Warden, and about us. Lina offered a small, hopeful smile. We rebatted but not broken. Let's heal together. Outside, the endless toxic sea churned, indifferent to the struggles of the floating scrap city and its desperate crew. Inside, the echoes of betrayal still reverberated, but so too did the nascent sparks of resilience. Cal's gaze hardened, resolve stealing within him. The journey ahead was more perilous than ever. Not only would they face the Warden's mechanical beasts and the sea's deadly embrace, but also the scars left by one of their own. The cost of survival was steep, and the bonds of found family fragile. Yet in this crucible of despair, hope still flickered like a stubborn ember, waiting to blaze anew. The chapter closed on a tense note, the crew standing at a crossroads where trust and betrayal collided, their fate hanging precariously in the balance. The question remained, could they overcome the fractures within and unite against the darkness looming beyond the horizon? Or would the shadows of betrayal drag them into the abyss first? The sea whispered its endless secrets, and Steelbone's legacy teetered on the edge of ruin and redemption. The oppressive silence beneath the sea was shattered by a distant, metallic clatter, the unmistakable herald of the Warden's mechanical beasts closing in. Cale's gaze was unwavering, fixed on the eerie blue-green glow of the bioluminescent algae that painted the shattered wreckage in ghostly hues. Around him, the remnants of the sunken vessel creaked and groaned as the toxic sea's pressure pushed against its fragile frame. The artifact lay secured in a reinforced crate nearby, its ancient metal humming faintly with latent power. His breath came slow and steady, though every muscle screamed in protest. The weight of the decision pressed heavily on his shoulders, the choice to stay behind. to become the bait that would lure the Warden's forces away from the crew's escape route. It was a sacrifice born not from recklessness, but from a hard-earned understanding of leadership. Kale knew that if the crew were to live, if Steelbone was to survive, someone had to hold the line. Deep within the bowels of the wreck, Mira's voice crackled through the comms. "Kale, are you sure about this? We can't do this without you." His voice was steady, laced with quiet conviction. "There's no other way. Get the artifact out. I'll keep them busy." The crew moved with practiced urgency. Joran adjusted the vessel's thrusters, his fingers dancing over worn controls, deciphering the ancient schematics that had guided them thus far. Lina's hands were gentle but sure as she patched up Grav's wounds, a deep gash across his shoulder from a recent skirmish with a mechanical beast. Her soothing words were a balm, steadying the nerves that threatened to unravel beneath the pressure. Outside, Cal set to work. He scavenged from the wreck's scattered debris wires, scrap metal, volatile fuel cells fashioning crude but effective explosive traps and noisemakers designed to confuse and fragment the enemy's advance. Each placement was deliberate, every spark of ignition a calculated risk. Sweat mingled with grime as he toiled, the faint hum of the artifact a reminder of what was at stake. As the first of the mechanical beasts rounded the corner, their glowing red lenses piercing the murky water, Cal's heart pounded fiercely. The beast's metallic limbs clanked against rusted hulls, their movements a chilling blend of precision and relentless aggression. With a deep breath, Cal triggered the first trap, the explosion rippling through the water like a thunderclap, scattering the beasts and buying precious moments. Back on the vessel, Mira's eyes never left the monitors, tracking Cal's progress through the flickering feed. Her fiery red hair clung damply to her forehead, but her green eyes burned with fierce determination. "We're almost clear," she announced, voice tight but resolute. Joran nodded, fingers flying over controls as the vessel surged forward, breaking free from the wreck's grasp. Lina's gaze flicked toward the viewport, catching a glimpse of Cal's silhouette, a lone figure standing steadfast against the advancing horde. Tears welled unbidden, mixing with the salt spray on her cheeks. She swallowed hard, her voice barely above a whisper. "Come back to us, Cal." The wreck trembled violently as Cal set off the final series of charges. The explosions illuminated the dark waters in jagged bursts of orange and white, sending shockwaves that scattered the mechanical beasts in disarray. The wreck began to collapse, a tumbling cascade of twisted metal and shattered glass. Cal's last sight was the fading outline of the crew's vessel as it slipped beyond the horizon of the toxic sea, carrying with it the hope of Steelbone's salvation. His heart ached with a bittersweet blend of sorrow and fierce pride. The cost was high, but the mission was no longer a solitary burden, it was a shared legacy forged in sacrifice. As the water closed over him, muffling the distant echoes of battle, Cal found solace in the knowledge that his crew would live on, bound not only by blood and loss, but by the unbreakable ties of found family. The toxic sea was vast and cruel, but within its endless expanse, the scattered survivors of Steelbone would carry forward the flickering flame of hope, and somewhere, beneath the waves, a captain's spirit endured, steadfast and unyielding. The vessel's engines hummed steadily as Mira leaned against the control panel, her breath still uneven from the harrowing escape. "He didn't have to do that," she murmured, voice thick with emotion. Joran, adjusting his cracked glasses, gave a small nod. "He chose to be the anchor so we could sail free." Lina joined them, her satchel of herbs momentarily forgotten. "We owe him everything. We have to make sure his sacrifice wasn't in vain." Grav, scared and silent, stared out into the toxic horizon. "Steelbone's fate rests with us now. We carry the burden, the promise." Mira's eyes hardened with renewed resolve. "Then we fight for Cal, for Steelbone." The sea stretched endlessly before them, a vast expanse of danger and uncertainty. But within the hearts of the crew, a fierce, bittersweet determination burned bright, a beacon against the darkness. Their voyage was far from over. As the chapter closes, the story lingers on the delicate balance between sacrifice and survival, leadership and trust. Loss and hope threads that will weave through the remaining journey of Steelbone's wary but unbroken crew. The toxic sea was restless that day, its thick, yellow-green fog hugging the scrap city tightly like a shroud. The metallic groans and creaking timbers of Steelbone's floating hull were drowned beneath the rising buzz of distant mechanical wares, a sound that sent an immediate hush through Cale's crew. They had faced mechanical beasts before, but what approached now was different, faster, smarter, and more coordinated. Cal stood on the deck of their vessel, his weathered hands gripping the rusted railing as sharp eyes scanned the shifting mist. The first beast emerged like a specter from the toxic haze, its joints grinding with unnatural precision, eyes glowing a malevolent red. It was followed swiftly by others, their forms sleek but deadly, gleaming metal limbs scraping the scrap beneath their feet. The acrid scent of burnt oil and heated metal filled the air, mingling with the ever-present stench of decay that clung to the sea.
"Get to positions!"
Cal barked, his voice cutting through the rising panic. He moved with practiced efficiency, signaling Mira to lead the scouts in flanking maneuvers while Grav readied heavy weapons rigged from scavenged parts. Lina moved among the crew, her satchel of herbs and medical supplies at the ready, eyes wide with concern but steady. Mira's fiery hair was a blur as she darted between twisted piles of scrap, her combat instincts honed by years of fighting alongside Cal. She struck without hesitation, disabling a beast's mechanical leg with a swift kick, sparks erupting from the fractured joint. Tess, Mira's protege, relayed signals with quick gestures and sharp calls, her youthful agility allowing her to navigate the chaos with ease. Joran crouched nearby, eyes scanning the beast's movements and recording patterns. "The joints are more advanced," he muttered, "hydraulic systems integrated with reactive servos. We'll need to target the servo hubs to slow them down." Grav growled in agreement, hefting a heavy, makeshift hammer. "Leave that to me." The battle unfolded in a brutal dance of metal and flesh. Claws scraped, engines hissed, and the clang of improvised weapons echoed over the toxic sea's endless expanse. Cale's leadership was steady, his commands precise despite the chaos, yet beneath his calm exterior, a storm of worry brewed. Every mechanical beast they defeated seemed to hint at a larger, more terrifying force at play, a force that was learning, adapting. Lina's hands were a blur, staunching bleeding wounds and murmuring words of comfort to the injured. Her presence was a balm to the frayed nerves of the crew, a reminder of the fragile humanity they fought to preserve. "Hold on," she urged one young scavenger, "we'll get through this, together." As the last of the mechanical beasts collapsed with a final, shuddering groan, the crew gathered, breaths ragged and bodies aching. The setting sun painted the toxic sea in shades of blood red and orange, a cruelly beautiful backdrop to their narrow victory. Cale wiped a smear of grease from his brow, eyes never leaving the horizon. "This was just a warning," he said quietly. "They're coming for us harder and smarter. We need to be ready." Mira stepped beside him, her green eyes fierce but thoughtful. "Then we fight smarter too. No more reckless charges. We work as one." Joran nodded, adjusting his cracked glasses. "I'll keep studying their tech. There has to be a way to turn their own design against them." Grav cracked his knuckles, a grim smile breaking through his scarred face. "Let them come. We'll be waiting." Lina's voice was soft but resolute. "And we'll heal what's broken in our bodies and in our hearts." Their found family, battered but unbroken, stood united on the deck of their fragile vessel, the endless toxic sea stretching before them like a challenge. The mechanical menace was no longer just a threat. It was a call to arms, a crucible that would test their courage, their bonds, and their will to survive. As night fell, the eerie glow of distant mechanical eyes flickered through the fog, a reminder that the battle was far from over. But in that moment, amid the ruins and rust, hope kindled anew, fierce, determined and unyielding. "Rest now," Cale said, voice low but carrying weight. Tomorrow we fight again. And with that, the crew braced themselves for the trials ahead, ready to face the heart of the mechanical storm. The night deepened, wrapping Steelbone in a blanket of uneasy silence. Yet beneath the surface, the city's heartbeat thrummed with the promise of survival and the unbreakable ties of found family. Somewhere in the toxic sea, the Warden's mechanical beast stirred, waiting for the next move. But Kale and his crew had learned one thing: survival was not just about strength, but about unity, trust, and the fierce will to endure against all odds. The mechanical menace was coming, and Steelbone would not fall without a fight. The horizon shimmered faintly, hinting at dangers yet unseen. The question lingered like the fading light: how long could they hold the line before the sea itself claimed them? The voyage was far from over.